one of the central characters in this book, Liz Dunn, finds her son she gave up for adoption after an ill-conceived trip to Rome when she was 16. She conceived this child, she gave it up for adoption. It's clear to me that adoption is fascinating you in this book. It's a human condition that you seem to be exploring because you think perhaps it's very ill-understood, very misunderstood.
In the last 10 years, 4 people quite close to me have gone out and found their birth parents, and it's been a catastrophe all 4 times. And I think that's statistically anomalous, but
because there are many successes statistically other than 100%, which is what you've just said.
Yeah, and everyone thinks they're, even if you weren't adopted, you still think, no, my parents were a prince and princess, and I got sort of stuck in this, suburb. So that was just coming out of my own personal experience with the situation. Continue, sorry. I tend to go on, I digress.
Well, there's plenty of time. But I suppose the point is, adoption as a human connection, what kind of a connection is it? Did you come closer to understanding it as a result of your 4 friends? Life's
already hard enough, and then you get something like that thrown at you, and you pin so much hope on it, and then nothing could live up to that, pre-expectation. And as time goes by, I think you learn to be realistic about your biological family the way you learn to become realistic about your own family. That they're not perfect, they're never going to become perfect, and quite often it's a disaster.
I mean, it's clearly a question of identity, which is something that again runs through everything that you've done. Here's another question which perhaps you can answer directly. It's not asking you to speculate on the subject of your book, which is artistic. Where identity is concerned, the country of birth is clearly an important one.
Yeah.
You as a Canadian, you've had this love affair with Japan.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You've said so much about the culture. You said it's 11 years ahead of Western cultures, I read you say.
About 11 and a half. It's true.
In what respect? Judged how?
There's something about the culture, because the density of it and the way things bounce about within it, like prisms and mirrors, their sensibility always tends to be just the 11 and a half years in the future. They don't have the breaks that we have here. They don't have certain traditions, and there's not a certain okay, you know what, in a very weird way, they just shop a lot. And their capitalism is far much more evolved than ours. They never had to, after World War II blew up the whole country, they started from scratch, whereas I think we still had saddled with a lot of old stuff.
I mean, you're talking perhaps about the Canadians?
North America in general. Maybe
Americans shop till they drop.
Japanese could show them a thing or two.
Well, especially in the field of technology. I mean, US cell phones are clearly like a dinosaur compared with what's going on in Japan. And technology is a massive sort of flirtation for you, isn't it?
Okay. Technology is what changes us. I mean, you don't hear people saying, gee, the 1360s were really different from the 1350s. What changes us as a culture and society is the technology that we adopt. And you look at what happened in the 1990s. We took all our memory and we put it on hard drives, and we look at the past, the present, the future, history is all different now. There's Google. And, how many people here in the audience Googled today? Everybody. Yeah. You imagine even asking that 5 years ago. But then sometimes I'll be working on a project and I'm going to Google like every 3 minutes. And at the end of the day, I'm almost burnt out on knowing everything. That, maybe that's like God, how that's how God feels. Like I'm really sick of knowing everything. And it just democratizes information. That's what I like, is the way it changes what's inside us.
It changes our understanding, because often you get the same fact twice as well, which means that you're forced to sieve in a different way. You see it written in a different way, but it's the same fact.
Well, for example, there's this web rumor about myself that I collect meteorites and that I live in a house with no furniture. Where does this come from? I don't know. I can't shake it. No matter what I do.
Shall we scotch it today? Do you want to scotch it once and for all?
I don't collect meteorites, and I design furniture. Good God, I love this stuff. I don't know where that comes from.
I want to ask you to stay with your design, your art. You once said that you treat words as art supplies. What does that mean?
You know what that means is, okay, well, you go to the gallery, you can see a print, and it's like, I don't know, like the mountains and a duck or something. And all the book is to me, it's a print that you've folded up a whole bunch of times, stapled to one part, sliced over there, but it's still a print. It's something, an art object, as opposed to something that exists only as words. You know, I've studied sculpture. It's what I do. I like objects, and I'm, you know, to connect this to what we were talking about earlier, I'm still waiting for some jerk down in Silicon Valley to invent the something or other book that's going to put me out of business, the way that downloading's put music out of business.
Maybe like a book you get involved with, like a role-play book where you're a character yourself in the book or something.
Oh, God, you're the one who's going to invent it.
No, I wouldn't be able to invent it. But it is a vision that many people have toyed with. The central character in the book, well, Jeremy, the son who finds his birth mother again, in Eleanor Rigby has visions. It's a large part of his identity, these visions. Is this connected with the fact that being such an artistic person, you came, as you say, from the art world, you like to think in these pictures, your characters, it's a central part of this book, that he has these, they're not dreams, they're not daydreams, they're visions.
And visions is a very grandiose way of saying, you're seeing something no one's ever seen before. And I think that if you go back through human history, that several thousand years ago, we didn't even have a future. It was just people went out and collected roots and nuts and berries. And then we started growing grains. And so we had the notion of putting things away over the winter. So then we invented next year. And then we realized, oh, if we can invent civilization and we can keep ideas going after we ourselves are dead. And it's always there's someone out there on the edge who's saying, wait, you know, there's this thing out there. And if we just look at things differently, we can all change and be better as a result of it.
So that's a vision for you, is it?
Yeah, I think so, very much so.
Because one of the Liz Dunn, the main focus of the novel,
the world's loneliest woman,
woman, who meets her son again. She questions whether blind people dream and how they dream. Is that a question that you have? Are you interested in loss of sight?
How do blind people dream? Do they dream in sound? I mean, what do their eyes do? It's a remarkable question.
Well, yeah. I can give you an answer.
Really?
But I'll tell you why in a minute. But I'm just wanting you to tell me, when your character asks that question, is that a clear Douglas Coupland question?
Oh, yeah.
Because you're so influenced by sight, you had art as a young adult, that's what you trained as. We're reading what you ask, the questions that you ask at this point.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Because we rang the RNIB, the blind institution in Britain.
Yeah.
And their answer to your question.
Do you have an answer?
Yes. Is.
Sorry, I'm going to say before you tell me the answer. This is wonderful. Thank you. Okay, what is the answer?
Well, the answer that's given to us is that even people born with no sight at all will recall sensations that they've had during the day.
Yeah.
Walking on the beach, the temperature, the sensation, they will recall it, process it as memories. And they say that sighted people process these recollections they've had as images, but that people with less sight or no sight focus them and process them in other ways. So it's possible for them, yes, to dream in sensations and temperatures, which was a question asked by your character.
Because there's another question. I mean, it's a simplification of the whole issue of seeing. But I've read in a few books now that you have people who were blind because of some sort of congenital defect or whatever, and they go zap, zap, and suddenly at the age of 30, they can